Today we're going to showcase my 6 Kings of War armies as well as share my gamer origin story. Stay tuned. Hello there! I like to watch battle reports to get better at games. So I started making short, summarized battle reports that focus on learning points. So welcome to my channel, Newbie Dice. Do like, subscribe and hit the bell icon if you enjoy my videos. Alright, so I actually shared all my Kings of War armies on the albums in Fanatics. So if you click on Fanatics, you can go to media, and if you click on albums, you can see other people's stuff, but mine are all here. It always starts with pages something. So 5 of my armies are here. The Redkin is further down below, and the Redkin is my first army. So without further ado, there's much to cover. So I'm gonna start with my Redkin army. So first up, I made this diorama, which I'm super proud of. It's my first diorama multi-base, and I think it is still one of the best one I've made because it is rats pouring out of a tunnel. I can use them as slaves, or what they call I forgot what they're called now, or warriors. Okay, so yeah, I made the mine with just popsicle sticks, and then I just put the felt over it, and then I covered it with flock. So this is the top view. You can see it's very dynamic that they're pouring out of the mine, and I still hit minimal model count. I think it's 11 on each regiment. You can see that it could split to 2 regiments, and yep, 22 models in total. So going on to the next, because the Redkin is my first army, I've been experimenting with different multi-bases, so there's no consistent theme going throughout this. So I was trying to make this look like a bridge, but because of the 80mm depth of this base, it can't really portray that very well. So they look like they got lost at the docks. Some of my opponents like to say, oh, we went to a dead end, where are we? So this is how it ended up looking a little bit, although you can see that there's a little bit of cork here and a little bit of cork at the other end, and to portray that it's the bridge that connects two pieces of land together. Popsicle sticks and chopsticks, disposable chopsticks. And this is a Screaming Bell model I actually bought off eBay. I think it came from Australia, because usually me being in Singapore, buying stuff from Australia makes more sense for the shipping, especially when you're talking about Warhammer. I mean, Warhammer stuff on eBay, is mainly in the more English-speaking countries, so the nearest for us would be Australia. So the sad thing about it is in the image there was the brazier on top of the bell, but when it came, I think it broke off. So it was missing the brazier, which was one of the highlights of this entire model. So I was pretty bummed out. I put this other red there. I forgot what is handler for the roots or whatever you call them. And so I've been experimenting a lot with the different kinds of bases, and you notice that the first one was green flock, the second one was water, and this third one is felt, just felt. I meant to make them coming off a hill, so it's actually sloped downwards. So I stacked a lot of cork at the back, and the models at the back, they can be individually plucked off as well. Because that time I was like, in case I want to play Vanguard. So I think you can see a little bit here. So I actually have a square piece of felt on each red on a 20mm base, and it's also elevated with several pieces of cork sheets, so that it's that tall. Because the felt were a little bit overlapping, when you put it together, actually you can't really tell that they are individual. And so this is roughly the whole army. I think my army has expanded since then. The picture not very well taken, and the lighting at this particular game store was not very good. Since then, I've also made this what do you call this, Scud, right? These are actually wings from a McFarlane dragon. I just bought it secondhand off a local secondhand Facebook group. And then, because it was really red and black, so I decided to paint Vermin Lord red and black as well. This was a War Machine and Hordes Legion model I used as the Brood Mother. And this is a cool thing that I did. One of my favorite models ever is the Screaming Bell. So I got another one that was not built and painted. So what I did was I chopped it down into a smaller contraption because the Tangle is only height 3. So I chopped it all down. I just left the base. I chopped down the outer, the arch, and then green stuffed it to the bottom. And so it's much shorter and smaller. And guess what? I found a bell, an actual bell that can be swapped, and it's about the correct size of the Screaming Bell. So then I pasted on some iconography onto the bell. And guess what? It works. So I'm going to play this. Yeah, except that it sounded more like an ice cream truck. So that's my first army. So the biggest flaw of the first army was that there was no consistent basing scheme or even color scheme. So it felt very felt very hodgepodge and meshed together. So that's one of the biggest reasons that I don't like to play my Redkin army now. Nonetheless, it was the first army I fully painted, so I was still quite proud of it in any game system. So I played Warhammer Fantasy, and then War Machine, and then Redkin. So it was the first time I have fielded a fully painted army. Every single thing is painted. So yeah, but lessons learned. If you are thinking of a new army project, do make sure it's a consistent basing and color scheme. So which is something that I corrected in my second army, Basileia. Okay, so my Basileia started out as a non-Mantic project. Actually, it started out as a Mantic project, but I found the Elohai models very frustrating to put together, as well as the knight models. The horses don't go to the two halves of the horses go together terribly. So I found it very irritating to put together. And then I came across a Raging Heroes models online, and this was somewhere in 2016, so quite a while back. And I bought the Raging Hero models because they look good. So I started this project about the same time as Jeremy Duval from Countercharge. And he also bought the Raging Heroes models back in that time. And my god, when it came, it's all in resin, and it's very brittle. It's very brittle resin, and it has those flash everywhere, those paper thin flash that you have to clean off and rub off, and then imagine flash getting stuck in all these intricate corners that you have to scrape off. So it was also a bigger nightmare to put together, and their scale is also very off for a line that is supposed to be like alternative to Warhammer, right? The sculpts are much smaller than Warhammer and thus Mantic, because I think Mantic's scale is very close to GW. Okay, so it's like the heroic scale, whereas this is non-heroic. So even this cavalry, they look like ponies next to the Mantic cavalry. Okay, so they're more like the Lord of the Rings kind of size, or maybe slightly bigger. Looking at this picture over here. Okay, but nonetheless, they are small, and it's very fragile and spindly. You see all these small little fragile chains and the sword bits, and the angels here as well. So I actually commissioned somebody to help me assemble. I commissioned a commission painter to help me assemble and prime it silver. That's it. So that guy did it. And yeah, so I assembled the rest of the force. So kind of cool effect I have going on here with the Elohai. I put them on clouds, but they're just basically cotton balls. Okay, and then the rest of the scheme is quite united in that I will use this dark green base with some lighter green flock. Okay, so it's quite consistent. Let's see. Yeah, this is some of the pictures. This is the Raging Heroes horses. And after that, I added on to the army by having paladins, because in 3rd edition, the first thing that was hot were the paladins on foot. So I have 3 regiments of paladins, so Mantic horses. So I manticized this whole army. So I went back and assembled the Elohai because I really wanted to have a Mantic army. Did the paladins on foot. The knights, I already had some Mantic knights, and then the Ogre Palace Guard. So every every Kings of War player tend to have a bit of a ogre stash, so I that's wanting to become an ogre army, but instead now I use them mixed with the ogre palace guard to be the ogre palace guard basically. So I use some of the normal ogres, like this picture over here, and then I just place capes on them, okay, so they don't look too out of place, but it's always led by a central ogre palace guard. Okay, I'm quite proud of this conversion that I have. It's actually a sisterhood, the sword bearing one, and then I cut off the sword because it's wielding the sword in two hands. Then I put a bit of green stuff wrapping the hands, and it looks like a ball of electricity because it's my lightning bolt wizard. Okay, and this is another shot of it at another one of our local campaign finales. I've added a Samacris, which I used custom wings for. The Phoenix is from War Machine and Horde Privateer Press. It's a Storm Raptor from Circle of Rose. Okay, I also have a Sisterhood Scout units, mixing in all the Scout from Vanguard. Some of them I had to use Men at Arms with the lady heads because there are more than enough female heads from the kit, the Vanguard kit. Okay, so with that, I'd like to share my gamer origin story. I started wargaming in 2012, so 10 years ago at the age of 25. So that's not too young, right? So I think I started wargaming later off than most people that I hear from. A lot of people started in their teens, but I only started after graduating from college and started earning money because wargaming is a fairly expensive hobby. Beforehand, I used to be a video gamer. So video gaming as a hobby is not that expensive other than getting a serviceable computer. You buy the video game once, or some of them have subscription models. But back then, most of the games didn't have subscription models other than massively MMORPGs are on subscription. Others are not on subscription basis. So graduating from college quite late compared to most people, because Singaporean men, we go through 2 years of national service where most of us go into the army. Some of us goes into the police force and the civil defense, which is firefighting and ambulance. So I started playing Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition. I walked by a local gaming store. So I've always seen this before growing up, but I've never delved into it. Before that, I played a little bit of Magic the Gathering, and the Magic the Gathering store sold some miniatures as well, but I think it was Confrontation back then. So when I went in 2012, when I walked by this local gaming store, it was predominantly GW, right? So the game store, most game stores, I think 40k is more popular, but I always preferred fantasy. So, and looking around at the range, I went home, look at GW's website, scroll through the range, and I wanted to start Skaven because I like two aspects, the Ninja Rats, and I think the Screaming Bell is a very, very nice model. I think it's very cool. Okay. But the store owner said, oh, if you select Skaven, you have to paint a lot of rats, and back then I didn't know how to paint yet. So I decided to change to Lizardman. Okay, I think I like the humanoid kind of things. Animals with human, bipedal humanoids. Alright. So after assembling my Lizardmen, I haven't painted, but after assembling and gluing them, because I'm more of a gamer at heart, I started playing. So my first game was 5 hours and we didn't even finish because it was 2 new players pitched against each other. It was my first game. It was the other players' maybe second game. And halfway through, our brain fried. It's like, what am I supposed to roll again? What am I doing? You grab the dice and you blank out, and then you just stone there because our brain totally couldn't comprehend. As you become a more established wargamer, you start to, some of the things become more automatic to you, right? Okay, most likely you roll the number of dice to hit, you hit a certain number and you roll to wound. But as a first time player, it's like everything like, oh, what am I supposed to do? So it takes a lot of brain processing power. Yeah, and for fantasy, right, Singapore had just started going to ETC, the European Team Championship at that time. And so we mainly played by the ETC rules pack, which has comp rules. Basically, they modified the rules so that the game was playable, not broken. Okay, and certain strong things were limited, like you cannot take too many of this, you cannot take too many of that. So there's an official comp pack that we played by. So I learned how to play Lizardman. But the thing about uh, Warhammer Fantasy and maybe the way that ETC is done it, because of the way they comp it, that most armies have maybe most likely have one style to play, which is so they are fixed. So if I'm playing Lizardman, I'm definitely going to play this style, which is the defensive style. Okay, and I wasn't thrilled about each army having specific rules in the team tournament because it's a team tournament, right? So basically you either take a defensive army or an offensive army. So you take a defensive army, your role is to not lose so much. And then if you take an offensive army, your objective is to table the opponent. So if half your army tables the opponent and the defense players didn't lose as much, then overall you have a win. So that's basically how we're supposed to play. And of course, defensive style, you castle up, you tank up, and if the aggressive player makes a mistake, of course, you could also roll over him. If he makes a big blunder, and you can capitalize on that. And of course, in that situation, you might win big as well. But otherwise, you're learning to play defense and try not to lose models, right? So it might like end up playing 2-3 hours of stalemate. Just you stare at me, I stare at you. No one's daring to commit. We just shoot a little bit of magic here and there and hope for big rolls. So it's not a very exciting playstyle as well. So, but even then, just before I stopped playing Warhammer Fantasy, someone put up a hand lot of Skaven, which was quite cheap. So I bought it. It includes the Screaming Bell and Red Ogres and some models. But then after that, after 1 year of playing Fantasy, I went to play Privateer Press's War Machine and Hordes. So at that point of time in 2013 is like the best competitive game system at the time. It's very balanced and each faction has multiple playstyles, and not all playstyles, but at least each faction has a few playstyles to choose from. And then there's also a 2-list format. You bring 2 lists to a game or tournament, and you look at each other's 2 lists, and then you blind pick your own list. That means the opponent doesn't know which list you pick and which list he picks. You review it simultaneously. So there's a bit more strategic element to that as well. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. Yeah, played it for a good 3 years. I think I was quite competitive locally. I think because I think I came into this game quite late. I don't think I ever reached the international standard of competitiveness. During these 3 years, End Times of Warhammer happened, and recruited quite a few players into War Machine and Hordes. These are the 3 factions I played. I started with Cygna. I collected Pharaoh, which are the pig models. Of course, they were not competitive at all, but I really like the war pigs. And then after that, I delved into Legion, which is quite a competitive force. But after playing 3 years, I started to feel the game was getting very bloated. Okay? There are lots of gotchas. So, if you know a good war game is all about the movement phase and the measurements, right? So there are a lot of gotchas in the game because I thought you could charge 10 inches. So I put 11 inches out, but I didn't know that you have this special rule that can extend the range by 2. So that became being unchargeable became like my unit dies. So and that is game over most of the time. And yeah, as more and more models release, there's a lot of special rules. Oh, this one can extend the range by 2 inches. Oh, that guy has the ability to extend by 2 inches. This has the ability that makes you stop, that cripples your movement. That has the ability that makes you roll less dice, So it became a game about remembering all the special rules. You need to have an encyclopedic knowledge of what the opponent can do. So I felt that no, this is not the way to go. Even though Mark III happened, they sort of cleaned it up a bit, but I still felt that the way the game was designed, fundamentally the problem cannot be solved. So after that, I took the chance to dive into Kings of War, and I heard about it. I played the demo game way back then, but then after that I went all in on it. Okay, that time the second edition Uncharted Empires was in beta testing, so there was Redkin being beta tested. So I was like, oh wow, I can play my Skaven. I didn't like playing the Salamanders because I know that Salamanders were not very strong throughout most of second edition, but the main reason I don't play them because there was no Slann Mage Priest, which I've taken to like a lot in my Lizardman army. It's like this cool toad that's being carried around, so cool. So I've been playing Kings of War since 2015. The local community has grown to a decent size, I think. And at a time we call for a tournament, we should get at least 6 to 8 players locally. And if we go for a campaign or a league, could get about 10 plus players to take part in the league. Yeah, the first Clash of Kings came soon after we started playing, right? So before we knew what was broken, the balance book came out. So I was like, oh, okay. So we never felt the wrath of things that fly and cannot be stopped, because we weren't very into the game at that point, and then Clash of Kings came. Right, so yeah, Kings of War has been a fun and competitive game, very streamlined rules. It's a better rank and flank game than Warhammer Fantasy, and it's fantasy, right, which still my love. I played War Machine and Hordes because it's steampunk. I don't mind the steampunk genre. To me, it's still considered fantasy with some cool engineering and technological components. Yeah, but Kings of War do have its inherent problems that is not easy to fix. So first thing is model count, right? You need a big army, you need a lot of models to play. And of course, the minimal model count or preferred model count did help a little bit. Okay, and rank and flank games are not everyone's cup of tea. Not everyone likes the idea of moving regiments and hordes of units. Okay. And the thing about rank and flank games is that there are very specific movement rules. And this gives rise to multiple weird situations and interactions. So that's like, oh, can I move like this? Or if I pivot, So you notice that most of the rules questions and issues all revolve around this, because there's only a very specific way you can move, and you have to maintain spacing, distance from enemies, so on and so forth. It always gives rise to weird situations. And the moment this game is a skirmish game, for example, round based, you just move this guy here, stay out of engagement. If you are fighting, you're in 1 inch. If you're not fighting, you cannot come in. Then that's very easy. But yeah, so this is a inherent problem of rank and flanks games, which are very hard to fix. So yeah, I've been playing the game for 6 to 7 years now. So it's been the longest I've played a single war game. So enjoying it, but also felt, I think some of the veteran players also feel, oh, I've been playing this for a while, maybe it's time to take a step back. But of course, I'll still continue to play, but maybe not as aggressively. I used to be super competitive. Been playing a lot on UB, call to arms, and trying to place in the top 10 and so on and so forth. But maybe I'm not so hard up on that anymore. So these are the other games I played. Manifold 2nd edition. I played Warcry 1st edition. The 2nd edition just came out. I played at the start of the 1st edition of Warcry. Soon after, we know that the factions are very unbalanced, and we all stopped playing. Local community. New team in the previous edition. Blood Bowl, I played a bit. I enjoyed the campaign style of it, that you sort of level up your guys, but I didn't like the game that is very unforgiving in the activations. You activate one model by one model, but the moment a model failed his action, basically he gets knocked over, then you pass the turnover. The rest of your models don't get to activate. So it's very important the order of activation is very important. You have to order them by highest priority to lowest priority, and I find it a pain and very rage inducing when I activate this model very early up. It has 99% chance of success, and it failed it, and then now my turn is over. So very unforgiving and rage inducing. So I don't think I will play that often going forward. So we have Guild Ball as well. That seems to be a streamlined sports game, or a bit of cross between Blood Bowl and Guild Ball. Blood Bowl and War Machine. But I've sort of started getting into it. I started playing it late when Blacksmiths were released, and then the game sort of died soon after. So other games that I currently play, so the other Mantic games, I have Dead Zone, Firefight. I do have a Fleet of Armada, but I've only played 2 demo games so far. God Tier, I really enjoy that, but not much of a local following. And Q Team, the new edition, I just got into this. Basically, the Dead Zone and Firefight community has been not very active, so I went to play Q Team just to have something to have opponents to play with. Because my gaming time is also quite unusual, is in weekday afternoons. So with that, let's move on to my third army. It's the Order of the Green Lady, and this is the one of the armies that I'm most proud of. So let's get into it. So this is the force displayed. This has almost everything except my Greater Earth Elemental, which is actually a Cronus model. So let's go on to specifics. So this army is fully Mantic, although of the Green Lady, there's no Green Lady models available, right? So I have to pluck models from all over the range of Mantic. So firstly, the Beast of Nature, I use the Frost Fangs with eagle wings. Okay. For water elementals, Mantic do have the water elementals, but I don't quite like them. They look a bit like Casper the Friendly Ghost. So I went with more Mantic horses and I green stuff. So this is a regiment. So because a horse is usually on a 50 mil deep, right? But a regiment is only 40 mils. So I have to get creative with how I place the model. So I chop off the hind legs, make it sort of rise out from the water. I use silicone to go over the whole model after I position it. And then I dry brushed. Okay, so this would be a horde. Horses rushing forwards. Okay, I have some cool characters. So firstly, I have this. This was the first druid I made. So this was actually a Succubi Lurker, I think, from Abyss and from the Vanguard set. So I converted it to hold a wand instead, and then with a bit of water rising out because she's controlling the water. I've made some narrative battle reports for my Order of the Green Lady. I'll link it on the top right over here. And I'm kind of proud of them, although I only made 2 because it was a lot of effort to make. So if you're interested in very narrative battle reports, you can check it out. Okay, this would be my Champion of Green Lady. This would be a druid on the mount, and this would be another druid. I kind of like this Mantic model, so I got it from my bodyguard who has 2 of it. So I got 1, and it's no longer available. It's one from an old kit of Forces of Nature that's no longer being sold. I added these swirls on it. They're actually blue stuff, which is actually a molding material. This is my Avatar of the Green Lady. So this is a Ice Blade, I think, from Northern Alliance. Okay, I clipped off her swords, so her hands just look like fists grabbing nothing. And then I added these fairy wings, which I bought online. They're printed on transparencies, and I just cut them out and pasted it onto the back. So this is my Cronus model, which I forgot to take out for my second time recording a video footage of my army. So, this is the model on its own. Cronus with matching pink flames instead, and then I pasted vines all over to make it more nature-esque. My Order of the Forsaken is Mantic Basilean Knights with wings added to them. Ever since taking this picture, I've swapped these bat wings to bird wings as well. Okay, so the thing about Order of the Green Lady, there are a lot of flavors of cavalry, right? First, we have the Order of the Forsaken. Now we have, I use this as the Brotherhood Knights, the plain ones. Okay, with Banner of the Green Lady. Okay, and I use this the Abyssal Knights as well. So I I got two. No, I went in on the Kickstarter, so I swapped the sets around. So I ended up with 2 Basilean sets and 2 Abyss sets. So each set comes with 3 of everything. So with that, I can make 6 of these knights. Okay, I forgot what they called. And yeah, next. So the reason why I got into Green Lady in 3rd edition was purely because of this picture from the Uncharted Empires book. I thought this picture of this knight was so cool, right? I was like, okay, I'm gonna make Green Lady army. And I think the concept of it is very cool to many people, right? Having the knights and nature element to it, I think appeals to a lot of people, myself included. So when I made this army, I was very happy to be able to sort of mimic this picture, okay, with Mantic models. So this is my Order of the Green Lady army. And I use this as the Order of Redemption. So this shield is a Mantic shield, right? It's from the Abyssal Guard kit from the Vanguard set as well. So I have 6 of the shields. I only used 5 because one of them is holding the banner. So I only have 6 of them. And I managed to put them all in one arrowhead formation, so there's no guy behind another one, because I wanted to make this a watery cloak over here. So in the fluff, the Order of Redemption, they have armor enchanted with water magic. So to showcase that, I think it's too difficult to put water on the armor. So instead of that, I have this billowing watery cloak, magical watery cloak. And when they ride together, it sort of connects together as one single sheet. Okay, so it's a transparency sheet glued onto the base of the necks of each of the models. Okay, with a fold-in L shape so that the sheet can maintain standing up. And then I apply a thin layer of silicone with some transparent balls, small little beads. Okay, and then I dry brushed over it. Okay, so yep, more shots from different angles. The armor, to make it a little bit more magical, I use color shifting paint, but it's not very obvious, unfortunately. I bought mine from Vallejo, and I think Vallejo's one is not as good. So it's supposed to shimmer between pink and silver. It hardly changes, to be honest. Okay, but nonetheless, it is this very interesting shade of silver, a little bit dark, but yet at certain angles there's a glimpse of pink in there. Okay, so here's a comparison of the picture. I have to add this, I don't know what you call this, plume on top. Maybe it's called the plume. Okay, then this is the knight with a face, right? And then the shield with a face, and then I added this Woodland Scenic branch, make the antlers. Okay, and even the piece of cloth over here, I sort of dab white dots over it to make embroidery. Okay, so this is the model or the unit that I'm most proud of. And next, I think I'm going to showcase my whole army. I had a video on that earlier, but I've taken it with a camera held in my hand. It was quite shaky, and I've taken a second video of it using a stabilizer. And please allow me to indulge as I showcase my army. It comes with theme music as well and our display board. abyssal golems as earth elementals because abyssal golems are resting. I don't want to use the map. You use the metal centaurs. This is exemplar redeem. That's next to the tree there. Pegasus are using mantic horses as well. The rhino is actually another unicorn. Hordes of water elementals. If you're from the Asia Pacific region, do consider checking out Hammer House website for your hobby needs. They carry a wide range of miniatures and hobby supplies, including Mantic, Vallejo, Scale 75, and Green Stuff World products. Alright, next project was the Romance of the Three Kingdoms of Men. So, for people who don't know, the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a era of history and warfare that's very popular in Chinese culture because it happens basically in China, right? It's a very cool era because there were lots of warlords, generals, and heroes in that era as they all vie for control to unify China. There are lots of books, novels, TV adaptations, movies, all sorts of stuff produced around this period. It's the most famous warring period in Chinese history. And so there's even a video game called Dynasty Warriors that's very popular. It's ironically done by a Japanese company, but it's that's why you can see that the art style is very anime, like very over stylized and cool. Okay, in fact, the game is so popular that they even have a Netflix show. The thing about the game is that the guys have superpowers. So even the Netflix show, the guys have superpower. As you can see, this guy with lightning and people blasted into the air. That's sort of like the video game. So the movie is kind of silly, but it's also homage to the video game. So these are three of the biggest characters in the game. General or Warlord Liu Bei, his two trusted generals, Guan Yu and Zhang Fei. Okay, so this is my Zhang Fei. He's mounted on a dragon. This dragon is actually a toy from the Dragon Ball series. Yeah, I don't know. I don't watch Dragon Ball, so I don't know the name of this dragon. But I just know that's the dragon from Dragon Ball, and I just repainted over it. Okay, and Guan Yu. This guy is called Guan Yu. He's a very famous general and warrior known for his loyalty. So he even come to a fact that to a point that he's now sometimes worshipped as a deity as well. So this is the original model that came on the horse. So I used him as the captain in one of our local campaign game. And then now I've mounted him on a dragon to be a general on winged beast. So it looks pretty cool. The rest of the range, so I bought these miniatures from China e-commerce website called Taobao. It's actually the retail version of Alibaba for retail customers. And I assume this is from a now defunct game. So either the sellers that sell them still have a lot of stock, or they have the mold or something like that. I could still get some of these models, but they're very limited. So a lot of things seems to be gone already. Like the range is not complete. Okay, so I found these horse riders to use as mounted sergeants. I found these cutlass wielding guys to use as fanatics because they seem very lightly armored. They look like pirates, but there isn't multiple poses, so they're all mono pose. For the spearmen, I found 3 poses, so 1, 2, 3, if I'm not wrong, or rather 1, 2, 3. This 3. Yep, the armor is slightly different from each other. So I just bought multiple copies of each and spread them around. There's a regiment, this is a horde, and this is a general called Ma Chao, but I used 6 of them to form a generic knight regiment. And there's a famous military advisor in the Three Kingdoms stories called Ge Liang. Okay, this is how he's portrayed in various games and dramas. Okay, he's always holding wearing this sort of hat and holding a feathered fan. So I modeled him out, and I want him to be on the Pegasus, but instead I put him on a floating cloud. And then the coolest thing I saw is this Sun Wukong, the monkey god. Okay, he's a character of Chinese mythology, not from the Three Kingdoms era, but he's a Chinese mythological character in children's storybooks, fairy tales, mythology, even worshipped as a god. As you can see here, this is statue being worshipped with flowers. Video games, Chinese theater called Chinese opera. Okay, so these are all the depictions, and yeah, this is how the model came. Okay. It's using some sort of palm nut that looks like ivory, carved palm nut that looks like ivory. Then I painted it up, and I must say it looks quite cool. I stick to the more traditional mythological colors of the yellow outfit with red and blue highlights, but still, so I think the color scheme is a homage to the traditional color scheme, yet because this model looks so badass, it doesn't look campy at all. It looks still quite ferocious. It's my favorite model of the whole army, of course, and I used him as my giant. I have one battle report with this army on my channel. I'll link it on the top right. And he performed in that game, so I was very happy about it. So you can watch that. It's quite a fun battle report recorded in the Mastercrafted style. Okay. Unfortunately, the video, after I put it together, then I realized it's on low video quality, but I can't. It was too late to fix it. So the video quality is a little bit on the lower side. Okay, the skin I painted, I washed it with multiple different colors, so it ended up quite nice. I even washed it bits of green, because I learned in a video that says even skin have pigments of green. You know, sometimes when you see your veins, they look greenish. Okay, so yeah, I washed it with green, red, yellow skin tone, sepia, whatever. So I washed it and then repainted it a lot of times. So it looked very wrong for a long time before it started to look right. So I'm happy with how the skin turned out overall, because there's quite a bit of exposed skin. The only thing that I didn't really like was the eyes. I wanted to have it more of a glowing effect, but I couldn't quite achieve it with my paint standard. I think it still looks okay. Several parts of this model, because it's a carved model, right? I think some of them, the details were not there. If you look at this hand, it looks like the fingers were not very well done. Even some of the leg plates here, the details were a little bit shallow and a little bit blurred. But overall, when you look at it, I think it looks great. So this is the whole army shot. Only have a roughly 2,000 to 2,300 point army with this very specific set of models. Okay. So going forward, this is my Forces of the Abyss. I completed fairly recently, but it's not the most recent project. So let's delve into it. So this is the army shot, also a full 2,300 point one list with this army. So far, I've just painted enough models for one list, whereas for Basileia, Redkin, and Green Lady, I do have enough for multiple builds. So delving into it, these are the shots a little bit closer up. 3 hordes of Morlocks, and that's exactly the list, right? 3 hordes of Morlocks. There's supposed to be 2 regiments of horsemen, Abyssal horsemen, 2 gargoyles, 1 regiment and troop of ghouls, 1 of tortured souls, Veil, 2 warlocks, and 1 Zazuzu. Okay, let's go through it. So the idea is to make them Persian or Arabic or mixed together, right? So firstly, my first inspiration was 300. So this for the immortals. So the abyssal, what do you call it? Is lower abyssals. They actually have a face, but I chose to paint the face silver to make it look like a mask. Okay, and then I made turbans on them. These are actually plumber's tape. It's this sticky tape that you wrap around pipes before you screw them together to prevent leakage. Very rubbery, and they kind of stick onto itself. So I just keep looping around the horns, and then I just dab a drop of super glue at the end to hold the end piece. Okay, so yeah, I always loved teal colors. So I bought this teal from Scale 75, and I really wanted to use it. So I think it sort of highlighted the whole army. Okay, I got this Persian. So these are historically accurate shields of the Persian army, especially the immortals. So I got them 3D printed and then casted multiple times with blue stuff molds. Okay, so this is a troop of it. My warlocks, that's the Vanguard's warlocks. I did a hit swap with a normal lower abyssal on one of them. And then these are tortured souls. They are actually ghoul or zombie bodies with green stuff lower half. Then I 3D printed genie lamps for them to come out of. So tortured the genies, right? So this is my Zazuzu. I just took a flame barrier, mounted on the back of a despoiler, and added lightning effects because he does have strong lightning bolt. The Morlocks, right? They have this plump look on them. Their skin, these are the old models. That means they are metal, so they're very heavy. The thing about the old range is also that the large infantry are actually not very small, and these are supposed to be monstrous infantry. So they're even smaller for being supposedly monstrous infantry. So their 150 mil base is so wide, right? So to not make it look too sparsely spaced, I added a cliff in the base, and then they're all standing on a cliff instead. So this dead space, sort of dead space at least, but it doesn't look that bare. Okay, and after I did them up, they look a bit like the Aladdin animated series, the animated movie. Okay, so my main 3 inspirations were 300, Aladdin, and Prince of Persia, the video game. Okay, so all of them I made them because the Morlocks come with multiple weapons, so I made them separated. So these are the guys with 2 weapons. These are the guys with tridents, and the middle one with the flaming torch. And these are the guys with 2-handed axes. The middle guy is the horn. Okay, and the Abyssal Horseman, I didn't like the Abyssal Horseman that Mantic have, so I bought Soul Flayers instead, and I have to buy 2 boxes just to make 1 regiment, so it's quite costly. And I will get to do the 2nd regiment sometime down the line. Okay, when I feel that I have spare hobby cash to burn 120 bucks on this regiment alone. Okay, so gargoyles, I painted them to look like marble. The picture looks a bit whitewashed, but the actual models, you can see veins of green and black and brown. My manifestation of Baal, I made them look like Jafar, so I copied the way his headdress is, his headdress turban thingy. Copied the shape of it with green stuff, and then I wrapped it around with plumber's tape as well. And I did a heavy OSL on object source lighting on his flaming fist, which I added metal paper clips. It looked like lightning. And yeah, I have 1 recent battle report for this army. It was its first outing, so do catch it at the top right hand corner. I'm going to link it over there. So lastly, I have my Salamanders. And remember, I played Lizardman in Warhammer Fantasy. So this Lizardman has been in storage since 1 year after I started wargaming. And I've always wanted to have a chance to do a Salamanders army with it at some point. Even at some points, I bought some models here and there for eventually a Salamanders project, but it took me a long while till I finally got to it. It was during a local campaign where I didn't have as much time to play. I decided to take part in the campaign because there's also a hobby element of the campaign. And I didn't want to buy new models. I was thinking of cutting down on my pile of shame. So I finally decided, okay, why not I work on the Salamanders. Okay, and one of the challenge I gave myself was no buying of any new models. So I have to dig out whatever I have to make this army with. So firstly, we have the Ceremonial Guard. And of course, your basic Lizardman Saurus Warrior infantry, right? And I put them with spears. They came with hand weapon and spear options anyway. And I added this, in Avatar, they have sort of a long braid where they have their USB connector to connect to different things in nature, right? So I added the braids. These were with some sort of twine material, but the rest I did it with a synthetic string, which looks quite good too actually. Yeah, this is the one with the synthetic string. Okay, I took it off a toy whistle with a string to loop around your neck. I cut that piece of string off, and it was enough to make the braids for the entire army. Okay, so I use aquatic plant decorations, and they're plastic. So I use them because Avatar Pandora, the fauna and flora and fauna is very psychedelic, right? Very colorful. So yep, like this also. So one thing I did was that I spray them down with a matte sealant. So because when they are not done with matte sealant, they look very shiny and plasticky. So this is after I sprayed. So even you can see this sort of lotus leaf is very matted down. I think this was before, so it's a bit shiny. And yeah, I bought these, what do you call them? Wow, forest shamblers way back then, and they are metal models. I kind of like how they look, especially when they're done painted up. Yeah, I'm making a horde, so I need a 4th model. So since I don't have a 4th model, I use a woodland scenic tree and got creative with it. Yeah, because I don't think this guy looks great. This is a piece of cork I'm used as the face. So the way I position them is sort of to hide the 4th guy. So a horde of forest shamblers. Oh yeah, and I put flames on them to make them fire elementals instead of forest shamblers. Okay, silicones flames as well. Yeah, with the OSL of the eyes, great. Okay, so next is this scratch built tree herder. So they are made of woodland scenic tree pieces, all these branches over here. The core is an actual piece of tree bark wrapped with the woodland scenic branches. These coils are metal wire, and the head is a piece of rock. Okay, the whole head is a piece of rock. And yeah, I should have taken a picture before I primed it. Okay, then you can see the various materials. Nonetheless, then yeah, the moment I added wildwood all over it, it started to look very realistic. The plum foliage, and then the flames, which are silicone, and this is done up, and I plastered the psychedelic fauna into it as well. Okay, so that's how it looks, and this is the for scale, right? It's quite big, but this is still a 50mm model. What I like about this Salamander's army is quite a monster mash. There's a lot of big models. These I use as Ember Sprites, just forgot what they're called, but they're from the Privateer Press Legion line. Something Wasp or something. Lesser beasts. There's supposed to be 4 or 5 of them, but I lost most of them, so I only found 2. And there you have it. Okay, I don't know why the slides are jumping. I think they might have been accidentally on timer, but these are from Warmer Hordes, the Ton 4 Alliance, or the Gatorman line. Okay, they're the Gatorman posse, the new kit that's rustic. Quite characterful, with the main guy being a shamanistic looking guy. 5 of them, and I thought that having double braids looked a bit cooler for them. So, yep, double braids. Cute little guy here. This is from, I think, WizKids, some sort of D&D miniature. So pretty cheap to buy, and I thought he looked kind of cute with the black shiny eyes. I used the glossy black paint. Okay, and this is the plants before it was matted down, so you can see how shiny it is. Alright, so for my Rhinosaur calf, I took inspiration from this model from the Avatar movie. Not many people will remember these beasts in the background. The horses they do, right? But this big rhino-like beast in the background, they're only shown in a very short clip. So, but nonetheless, I mimicked it with the reddish and blue shades. And oops, here it is. Reddish and blue shades. A bit of wet blending to get it done. And they are the Saurus Cold One Riders. I just heated up their legs so that I can bend it outwards a bit more to put onto the Rhinosaur calf. I have to clip off where they're seated, I have to clip off the ridge on the back. And next are these. These are Banshees in the Avatar movie. I think most people who watch the movie remember them. They are the flying mounts, where Jake has to go through this rite of passage, climbing these floating islands, get to them. Okay. So I did up the floating islands, the process, and this is how it's all coming together. And this is how it's all done with Pterodon riders. I thought they looked close enough. Just painted them in a similar paint scheme. Another angle. Right. And some people might remember this. This is the big puma looking creature that Jake faced off at the start, but then it came to help Neytiri to defeat the bad guy in the robot suit. Okay, so I painted this guy black, and I thought the full black was a little bit boring, so I added some browns, the scales, and purple on the ridge spikes at the back. The front is dry brush a bit more white to have this whitish thing here. Yeah, so it's just a color scheme match. I don't think it looks very similar, right? But I kind of like this old Carnosaur model. I think this looks much better than the new one. The new one always seemed a bit goofy to me, especially with that ridiculously impractical throne that he has on the back of the Carnosaur. It's ridiculous. It's an old metal model, so quite hefty. And lastly, this is Toruk. So I think in Avatar they call this Toruk, which means last shadow, because it's the last thing you see if it attacks you. Okay. And I think in the movie they say the English name is the Great Leonopteryx. Then the rider of Toruk is Toruk Makto, which basically means rider of the last shadow. Okay, and I want to mimic this in all its glory. So, ta-da! This is the Legion Archangel model from Privateer Press. It is a mighty fine, beautiful model. It's meant to be 100 on a 120 mil round base, so the model is huge. Okay, and lots of detail. You see veins, spikes, muscle, sinew, right? Sinew on the mouth. You see all the little details on the wings. So it's a great model once it's done, but it is a pain to put together because it's a mix of resin and metal parts. Basically, the big parts are in resin and the smaller parts are in metal. Okay, so the body is resin, the wings are resin, the spikes on the back are metal, and it comes in three segments. And then they don't join perfectly, so I have to green stuff the gaps. These little spikes at the edge of the wings and this hook right here, they're all metal. I think some are resin, but some are metal. So, yep, and the tail is metal. But nonetheless, really happy with how it turned out with all the stripes as well. So, how I've done it, I'm not a great painter. This is mostly done in contrast. Okay, orange and yellow contrast, wet blended together. So firstly, I put on the stripes with black Templar. Okay, so it's not fully black. Then after that, I applied, so I go around the black patterns with yellow. Then I quickly added orange and then I just blend it together. Okay, using contrast, but I even added more water to the contrast. Basically, I'm quite lazy in mixing, so I just dip my brush in water before I dip it into the contrast and then just glop it on and just swipe it around. Okay. Yeah, so all pictures, free to pause if you look at them. And last indulgence is to play this footage. No sound here, but manual turntable. All right. And this is it on the table. Just a 12 drop list at 2300 points. Includes a Phoenix as well, which I had since my Basilian times. And I just, it was on a 50 mil since 2nd edition. So I put it on top of 75 mil with the matching scenery, matching flock. So very colorful, lots of flora, and lots of monster mesh, lots of big models as well. You can see Freeherder, or rather I use it as the greater fire. And yep, Toruk, or rather I use it as a clan lord on Fire Drake, but without a rider because I thought it would be a disservice to add a rider to this beautiful model. And we have our Pterodon riders, or Scorch Wings. I use them as Scorch. And these Awas, the Pale Rider. So that's why the rider is a very light shade of blue. And Phoenix. Yep, all big models. Only 12 drops. And yes, with that, I'll just quickly touch on my Dead Zone Force. I have a Dead Zone Enforcer Force. So like this, I bought Peacekeepers and the Jet Bikes since then, but I don't really enjoy playing Enforcers in Dead Zone as much. Much enjoy the GCPS more. But nonetheless, these are the models. Previously was the Pathfinders in Focus. Now it's the suited guys, Enforcers, right? And my GCPS forces. So this is the Tank Hunters because they have thermal grenades. Okay, these troopers. These are recruits because the leader is a fist with a pistol. These are Ranger lieutenants with his 2 sniper squads. This is the Ranger sniper squad, leader with a rifle and 4 snipers. I kit bash a lot of the weapons. The three of my tech drones. This is actually a Necron model. And 2 weapon teams. This is the forward observer with 2 Pathfinder snipers. I've repainted this since then. This is the Major, I think. I've repainted his cloak in this 10 color since then. I started to realize halfway through painting this army that the 10 and green looks very nice together. Yep, this is my Strider. So the models for Dead Zone, I actually named every single one of them. I thought it was quite fun. I named them with names of the community. So this is a homage to the Jesse Conwell. And yep, on bike. These are medics and the Medibot. So conversions, this is a Signar model, Warm Hordes, and this is Adeptus Mechanicus model. I use him as a Medibot. Okay, these are used as the Major as well. So same thing like pistol and sword, but I do have the official model, so I use them more. This is a Striker, which I kind of like this guy in the game. Okay, my 2 Striders. Wanted to give them cool names. I actually wanted to name very cool sounding names, right? Like in Armageddon movie, they named the 2 shuttles Freedom and Independence, right? Or in Gundam, the only Gundam series I watched was Gundam Seed Destiny. Or Gundam Seed, can't remember. But the 2 main characters, their robots were Justice and Freedom. Okay, and then I thought like, I think sounding a bit too cool. So instead, I call them Submit and Comply. That was quite funny. And yep, painted in different color schemes. These are the cars. What they called? Can't remember what they called. Forward Observer repainted in my Enforcer color scheme with the yellow and blue. And this is the Watson, I think. I forgot what's her name, but it's the name character. But I'm using her as a Ranger Lieutenant with shotgun because my previous one is not holding a shotgun, holding a pistol. So this one is the one with shotgun. And these were the second wave of stuff that I painted. So I painted more recruits, or I use them as Marines sometimes. The ones with the helmet is the veterans. And then of course the black ones are the Rangers. This is the whole force. Let me see if I can zoom in. Not very clear, but yep, this is full force. 2 forward observer squads, 1 ranger squads, attack drones, the Major, the blue ranger, vanilla ranger squad with a sniper attachment. One of them is a sniper. The orange are the recruits or marines. I think I'm using them as marines. There's 15 of them. Then the green ones are veterans. The teal ones are tank hunters. The yellow ones are riot troopers. The red ones are sniper squad. And then I got the ogre mercenary. That's for dead zone. Okay, the medic squad is here. And then eagles and 3 riders. I'm using 2 in my firefight list. The 2 with the anti-tank cannons. That's the best option. There you have it. My 6 armies. I have Red Kit, non-Mantic, Basileia Mantic, Green Lady Mantic, Kingdoms of Men non-Mantic, Abyss Mantic, Salamanders non-Mantic. So exactly half my armies are Mantic. And so the next one I'll work on is probably a Mantic force, but I don't know what I want to do right now. None of them are really speaking to me right now. So maybe I'll just wait and see. 6 armies is kind of a lot. With the new book coming, maybe I'll just update some of my armies and play them. I'm more interested to play Green Lady and Abyss at the moment. Although yes, I've been featuring a lot of Green Lady on my channel. But nonetheless, I would like to continue to feature play Green Lady. I enjoy them quite a bit. Okay. And Abyss, yeah, maybe Salamanders also. Maybe back to Basileia, but I feel that Basileia plays quite similar to Green Lady, so I'd rather play Green Lady. Of course, I have my GCPS and Enforcers. And yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed me sharing this with you guys. And yes, I have a Patreon now. So if you'd like to support my channel, you can check it out at patreon.com/newbiedice. Not a ton of rewards, but it's just to keep this channel going, to me producing content for you guys, because content creation is not easy, it takes a lot of time. And I'd like to shout out to my Patreon, Anonymous, the 1Pete Patreon, and a 3Pete Patreon, Guy Harper. And I will be looking at setting up podcasts soon. My next episode will be a video and podcast double. And I'll put my earlier episodes of podcasts. I'll link them at the top right here anyway. They are video podcasts, but I will also be setting them up in audio format very soon, because really hosting podcasts actually costs money rather than YouTube, which is free. So now that I have a Patreon, I'm able to justify spending some money to host podcast audio episodes. With that, thank you very much for joining me to share my 6 armies, and I'll see you in the next video soon. Do like, subscribe, check out my Patreon, all of that jazz. Alright,